All right, welcome back to another week of the Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast, where we break down political narratives on both sides of the aisle. Yes, we are America First Trump supporters. And here in this podcast, I am a radical Frederick Douglass Republican. I am Julian Acciard, and in studio here today, I have with me Andy and Mike from Citizens Doge here to give us the Doge report for today's episode. We also, after discussing the LA riots, No Kings protests that happened this weekend, the riots all throughout the country, and we're going to get into, the Army's 250th birthday. Happy birthday to my Army boys out there, to my soldiers, my vets. And we're going to have on our guest for the final segment to discuss the looming war with Iran and Israel, another Middle Eastern war of attrition. It's going to be our guest, Tyler Gray, who's going to come on and discuss, foreign policy and what we have to expect coming up, along with his book, Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story. So, Mike, Andy, how you guys doing? What do we got for the Doge Report this week?
We're hanging in there. So this week's Citizens Doge Report is sponsored by Blue Collar Intellectual and the Granite Discourse Podcast. You got two podcast sponsors this week. That's the first. So that dovetails nicely to the first recap I want to give, which is that the Granite Discourse has posted the conversation that Mike and I had with them a couple of weeks back with Craig Bona and the Carroll County GOP Chair, Brett Williams. There are a number of short clips out there, as well as the full episode on YouTube and Spotify. Always help a growing YouTube channel, people. Subscribe to the Granite Discourse on YouTube and Spotify. The events recap we want to give is that we were at the Flag Day, Flag Wave, and Barbecue at New England Die Cutting in Methuen, Mass. on Saturday, Flag Day, June 14th. A lot of conversations with people from both New Hampshire and Massachusetts interested in the principle of what we're doing, and we think in the actual actions that we're trying to send people out to do locally. So we got about 2 full sign-up sheets, I think, really well, from people who were attendees that day. We stayed for about 4 hours.
We sold some merch, too.
And sold some merch, which was I think, a first also. So that was a good day. And no incidents reported, even though we also had friends of Citizens Doge in Milford and Keene and some various other places, mostly around Hillsborough County and Cheshire County. So it was a good day. Flag Day was. Want to dovetail from there to our next regular plugs, which is that we do have Citizens Doge tees available now. We have some great designs, including the ones Mike and I are wearing, but we have some ones that are a little bit more elaborate too. If anybody is interested in checking some of the designs out, please reach out to one of us. Reach us at our website or our email. We think you'll like some of what we have. As far as upcoming events go, tomorrow, June 18th, there is going to be a conversation with the community event at the WMUR studios in Manchester. Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander, my favorite congressperson in the world, will be showing up, and we'll have an event from, I believe, 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. in studio. We are planning to gather at 8:45 by 8:45 in the general area near the main gate into the studio with some signs, which we think will be clean but also provocative and sort of get a message across that, maybe Maggie Goodlander and people like her don't necessarily represent the best interest of New Hampshire or New England or, regular Americans as a general pattern. So we're going to hope to have a good presence there.
We do have, before you go into the next one, we do have a video, actually, we're going to show one when you can you pull that up? The video with Maggie Goodlander's mother.
Oh yes, this is at the protest we attended at UNH Law in mid-May.
Like when he get mad. Bueller, what are you doing, Bueller? Just so you know, I'm Maggie Goodlander's mother, and I'm Jake's mother.
This is Betty Tamposi talking about her son-in-law.
I raised her on a farm right there.
So that was an exciting day.
So what was she saying there? She's supporting your right to protest?
In essence, yes. The deeper element was that we had some signs that were poking some lighthearted fun, maybe a little bit more than lighthearted fun, at the Goodlander-Sullivan residency status, because famously they have had a townhome residence in a very nice part of Portsmouth for a number of years since they both became kind of DC power brokers and ladder climbers. But they were, of course, renting, and I mean renting, an apartment in Nashua, and apparently not too nice part of Nashua, during the campaign last year, just to have it as a formality that they had a domicile in the district, even though it's not a domicile. Their only real domicile in New Hampshire prior to this year was in Portsmouth. As of just a month ago, we can confirm they actually have recently purchased a home in Concord, so Mrs. Tamposi was
Nice to have 3 houses in New Hampshire.
was telling the truth, but we would still like to know what the rent for the apartment in Nashua was, so that may be one of the questions we'll ask tomorrow.
All right. You know, I always found it interesting that politicians play this game. Like in New Hampshire, you don't actually have to live in the district that you're running in. You just have to live in a state. So why not just call a spade and say, look, I'm running for the seat because it's an open seat and it's safe and I think I can win it. Like, just be honest with people. Like, I'm going to be honest. I live in Derry, but I live literally a stone's throw from District 2. I can throw a rock into Salem from my house. Like, it literally.
Yeah, the lines are very strange how they cut it up, for sure.
Yeah, it's like literally the block. I live off of Island Pond, and the intersection on 111.
Yeah, the intersection is in a different district.
Literally,
yeah.
it's Derry, then Atkinson, then Salem, and further down is Wyndham. I'm like, I would just be like, hey, yeah, I live right on the line. Just call it a spade a spade. I mean, Maxine Waters, there's been many people in Congress who you find out rent places in the districts they're running in, and they're always in crap areas. It's like the cheapest possible rent. Like, hey, find me some crack house that I can rent an apartment in, so I can say I live in this area. So I can
cheesy,
run.
yeah.
Just be honest about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But so you guys have been having success around state. A lot of people are tuning in. A lot of people are joining the movement and getting active. That's and I'm glad you guys, Granite Discourse had you guys come on.
Yeah, that was great.
So how'd that conversation go?
Went really well. So that was part of the cruise. So we went up and did the Belknap County cruise, and we made a whole day of it. So we went up a little bit further north to Sullivan County and met with Craig Bonna and Brett Williams, who is Andy mentioned, the Sullivan County GOP lead, I believe, or
It's actually Carroll County, but you're right.
Carroll
It's
County.
along the main border.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once you get past Concord and I'm like, forget about it. It gets all confusing. But yeah, so that was wonderful, and they actually both of them came on the cruise with us, and so we're expanding our reach. We actually have a group in Littleton, New Hampshire, starting up, like part of the North Country area. I got a call today from Paul Lang, who wants to follow up with us. So we are now branching out throughout the state, which is good. We're going to try to get at least a few volunteers or town captains in key regions of the state.
Have you had any reach out from like the New Hampshire GOP, anybody in leadership, beyond just the local towns and county leadership?
No one from the head of. We spoke to several people. We spoke to on the cruise we mucked around with a couple of them. Jim McEachran, we spoke to him for a little bit, but nothing official from the GOP. They're probably staying out of that kind of stuff. But we're having good results with the counties and the town GOPs, which is good.
Yeah, we think that Victoria Sullivan is a fan of ours. Shout out to Victoria Sullivan if she's watching.
Victoria Sullivan is a sweetheart. Absolutely love her. I knocked doors for her both times she ran for mayor, and she's one of the good ones. She's definitely one of the good ones, and she's always been a fan of like the grassroots and trying to get things done. She's definitely not a fan of the playing it safe and skimming the margin. She's like, no. We need more voters. We always need more voters. We need to go reach out to the people we don't talk to. So that, and in that regard, me and her see eye to eye. great family too. Her
Yeah.
her kids are very successful, and her husband is cool as hell.
And speaking of door knocking, you just mentioned it, so we'll continue on the report because we actually have a door knocking event going on.
All right.
So this Saturday, this is a funny kind of dovetailing. So at our last action meeting on Friday the 6th, I had a conversation with a state rep who attended. The gentleman's name is escaping at the moment. He represents Hillsborough 32 in Concord, who told me about a special election coming up in Stratford County District 12 because the incumbent Democrat has
Ken
Hilton?
left
Yep.
the district, and Ken Hilton is going to be the Republican candidate to fill that seat on Tuesday the 24th, so next Tuesday, a week from today. And there's a bunch of organizations that are all kind of on this flyer that you can see here that's from the NHFRW. As it turns out, I actually had a conversation on the phone with Ken about 30 minutes before Mike then told me, he said, Christine Peters called me, and she wants us to be part of the group that's going to sponsor the day trekking up to Somersworth and door knocking for him. So it was just kind of a serendipitous path into helping this out. So we hope that we'll go up there, have a big group of us from, I think, all four of the sponsoring organizations and get the vote out for them.
We got one more sponsor, too, who actually ended up taking our sponsor spot in the new flyer, but Cornerstone Action.
Oh, okay.
So they do a lot of legal work in the state.
Yep.
So they're going to be another group. So it's actually really been great to see Ken getting so much support around the state. And you should see who he's running against. I mean, it's a joke.
And the funny thing is, like, Ken, as far as views go, is not the person that you would expect all the groups to get behind. Because, I mean, he is a conservative, like a legit conservative. He's not by any means an establishmentarian. But it's really nice to see everybody, getting on board, firing in the same direction. We can all get behind somebody. And
he's just a humble, nice guy, hardworking family man.
He's
You
a
mentioned
good,
he was a
honorable
pastor.
guy.
Yeah, it's like we need people like that that are just, going to bring family values back and just be stable and not some crazy.
Yeah, he'll be a solid vote in the
yeah.
state house. And you guys sent me this weird picture of the person he's running against.
Yeah, I wish I had it. It was on another flyer, but yeah, it looks like a transsexual from the 1700s.
Wow.
Like maybe the first ever transsexual, because it had
like
the
a
wig,
full-on drag queen.
like the founding fathers, they look like they have wigs and they have all this feathers in their hair, and like literally it looks like the first ever drag queen or something.
Oh God.
His name is Billy Butler or something like that, and it's like,
of course, in New Hampshire we have. I'm not gonna lie. This state is cool in a way that like the average person can run for office, and you can look at your state rep and you could be like, do what you're supposed to do, or you're going to be out of office. And you can see your state reps walking around the grocery store. Yeah, like I know all my state reps. I can call them up.
Well, how many do we have? Like, was it
400?
I was about to say 400 of them.
State reps.
In a small state,
senators.
you have access to these people, which is great.
Oh yeah. So each one represents roughly about 3,600 people. That is insane.
Yeah.
Like when I tell that to people in other states, they're like, "That's so many. That's many."
Like a
state
neighborhood
reps.
in some places.
Imagine, like you couldn't do that in California where you got 40 million people, but imagine having your state rep so like where you could just walk up to them and be like, "Hey," see you in a grocery store and be like, I need to have a discussion with you about this upcoming bill on education or parental rights or the Second Amendment, red flag laws. Just pick a thing, and you could just walk up to them. And the big thing that's been coming up recently, and this has really galvanized the whole state, has been the housing issue. Mm-hmm. Because unlike parental rights and unlike some of the drag queen story hours and some of that stuff, this affects everybody in the state is affected by it, and it has really brought out all comers to the everybody is involved in this discourse. And I don't think I've seen such a dirty split, because it's not an even split one side or the other. This isn't a Democrat or Republican thing. This is a local control versus state control thing. And it has split parties. It has split groups. You have people getting dirty and grimy online with each other. And I'm like, go figure that this would be the issue that all of a sudden gets everybody active. I thought it would have been, the education, the CRT, or all of that stuff. But it ends up being this. And I'm glad to see it because it's making people go, maybe I should stay tuned in. Maybe I should stay active. Maybe I should reach out to some organizations like you guys and pay attention to what's going on, because there are things getting passed when we're not paying attention that we wouldn't necessarily be cool with. And I see this as a net positive. No matter how it works out, it's a net positive, because more people being active at a local level, more people being involved is always a good thing. I'm glad to see that everybody's, rallying behind Ken.
Yeah.
Like I said, good guy, personal friend.
It's been great. Yeah.
Fantastic. And it's good. And we definitely... Back to the crazy New Hampshire thing. It's really weird seeing some of the people that run for office. Like, we got a vermin supreme.
Like you said, you could have you have 400 state reps, so you get all kinds, right? Anyway, anyone could just sign up and run. Yeah, you get.
If you want some laughs and you're not from New Hampshire, take a look at each time there's a federal election and see just past the top 4 candidates running. Just look at the slew of candidates all running. There's 14 people running.
You just get random Green Party, somebody, this and that, Constitution Party, different things. Yeah. And Vernon Supreme is great. He actually came to a bunch of Trump events
too.
And I don't know if he was trying to disrupt the thing, but we kicked him out of the office one time. I have a crazy video about that, and he showed up a bunch of rallies and brought his toothbrush, and he's just I think he just does it for fun. But it's
super
great.
Intelligent. But so what's up next on the Doge Report? What do you guys got?
So the last event we want to plug is that the Lilac Luncheon on Saturday the 28th. We do still have 2 tickets of our allotment remaining. Mike is the one to contact for that. I believe we have had some requests about it, but we hope to sell those before we have a chance to go to that event. And just to wrap up again, we are Citizens Doge. You can reach us at our website, citizensdoge.com, our Gmail, citizensdoge@gmail.com. Pretty straightforward. We're on YouTube. We're on X, at Citizens Doge USA. We're on TikTok, and we're on Facebook. And we once again want to thank our sponsor emeritus, Julian Acciard, for having us again.
Always. I love having you guys on. I've always been a fan of getting active locally. And it's something that needs to be happening in every state in the country. And I pray to God that more people throughout the country, when I'm on podcasts, I was just in a space earlier, plugged you guys in a space. I was reach out to these guys. I'm going to have them on, figure out how you can start a Citizens Doge in your state, because, in between, all the bouncing balls and the flashing lights and all the beautiful, fun stuff that happens at the national level that gets everybody up in arms because we got Twitter machines in our hands and we all swear we're national activists. There's stuff that's happening in your local town. There's stuff happening in your state. There's stuff happening that you could actually have an effect on versus pontificating online about the stuff that you have zero control over. Because let's be honest, the average person doesn't have the reach or the influence to actually be able to discuss, or the knowledge to discuss, a lot of these big national federal issues at that level. And to the degree that I do, I'm still always saying you have to focus locally. Most of you are the equivalent of the National Guard. You should be shoring up your community against the next disaster of a state rep that could be running down the street from you, who thinks it's a good idea, to castrate toddlers, or thinks it's a good idea to allow the state to take over your local zoning and decide how your town should be organized, or the person down the street that you may be a Second Amendment supporter and they hate guns altogether. Yeah. And you just don't know unless you're paying attention to what's happening right behind you, right down the street from you in your local government.
Yeah, and as we've discussed and through, been doing this for about a month and a half now, is that's how they took control of this country. Like you said, they come in and they push all these bills, they raise taxes, they do all these things, and everyone's focused on the big shiny stuff, federal elections, presidential elections, and they don't show up to their town meetings. They don't show up to their school board meetings. And they wonder why their taxes are so crazy. Their budgets are out of control. They're hiring all these crazy people. And like you said, so we need to get back to our roots, fix our local communities, and then we can branch out to the state and then the federal.
And to piggyback on that just quickly, they cloak it always in a language of moral superiority. I noticed that when Maggie, back to her again, when she formally announced for Congress last year, her first ad was her appearing at the school where her mother voted on the day she was born. She was born on Election Day. And the whole narrative of this 2 or 3 minute ad was, I'm a Nashua girl. I was born on Election Day. America's great. America's under threat. Donald Trump is, the epitome of evil, and, put in people like me. And that's how they shortchange all these arguments about substantive things with just, I'm the light unto the nation. Please vote for me. Give me power. Anybody who says something like that, and they don't even have to run for a federal seat. They can be just somebody who's sort of an oddball running for a state rep seat or anything like that, or dog catcher. If they're cloaking the reason they should be there on their moral superiority, that should be a light that just goes off and tells people to take action.
It should, but for some reason it doesn't, and it's because we're all susceptible to emotional manipulation. It would be ludicrous, and this is one of the things I always said, that the whole facts don't care about your feelings thing. That's a really cool line to use when you're owning college libs, but the reality is facts do care about your feelings. If you're emotional, you can't receive logic. Like, I'm just throwing this out there. Been married almost 15 years. It'll be 15 years November 17th, and I'm telling you, when my wife is emotional, you know what I don't bring up? Well, honey, logically, if we sit down and we think about this, no. I have to first go, look, I understand how you feel. I understand where you're coming from. All right, and we can work on this, and this is where I think we can ally together, and this is where the Republican Party has been dismal at. We got to fix that. But before we get into our rant about, let's take a quick commercial break, because we're going in 3 segments today. We're going to get into our next rant. We're going to go over what's going on this past week with the riots and the protests, the No Kings protest all over the state, the 250th anniversary of, the Army, and see you in a couple minutes. United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. Written by Julian Acciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Acciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving Southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
All right, and we're back with the second segment of Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. Let's get into some of the news. So we had the 250th anniversary. Again, happy birthday to all the soldiers out there. Specifically, my boy Klimov, who just moved back to Moscow. And my boy Chris Bright, who is having his campaign launch coming up on, I believe it's the 24th at Stark Brewery. I'll give you guys more information about that coming up soon. But so Trump had this big parade down in D.C., and it's been a while since we've had a military parade. Now, if you look at the rhetoric from the left, they're going, oh my God, he's a dictator having a giant military parade for his birthday and blah, blah. And I'm like, no. His birthday happened to coincide with the 250th birthday of the United States Army, which the parade was to celebrate the United States Army. 250 years is a big thing. For guys who haven't served, like, I don't celebrate my birthday. As a Marine, I celebrate the Marine Corps birthday. My birthday isn't an accomplishment to me. It's like, yay, I took another lap around the sun. I'm older. My joints hurt more. My arthritis is worse. I have less patience for other people's bullshit. It's like, oh, yay, I'm older. I'm 1 year closer to death. But for the thing that I love is my brothers in the Marine Corps. And so I celebrate the Marine Corps birthday because that's one of the accomplishments that I am most proud of, and that fraternity of service. And me and my dad, who has also served, and my mom, who has also served, and my grandpa and his brothers, and like back 140 plus years, we look at this and we go, there's a fraternity of those who served. And then there's an even bigger fraternity of those who served within the same service. And then there's a fraternity of those who deployed to war. And then a bigger fraternity of those who deployed to war within the same service and then within the same unit. And it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And the further you go, and I don't think the average person in the United States who hasn't stood on those yellow footprints understands that level of that deep commitment and camaraderie and the pride that we have in being able to stand up and say, blank check to the United States, whatever you need me to do, I'm willing to do it because I believe in this country. And to have a president honor the military in a way like Trump did this past weekend, I'm not going to lie, it feels really good. It feels really good. Now, just beware, because in a few months it's going to be the Marine Corps birthday. And if you thought the Army birthday was a big deal, Marine Corps, it is a holiday in and of itself. The internet will be flooded with memes. I will be contributing to the meme war that goes on as we roast all the other branches for being less manly than the Marines. And yes, there will be free Laffy Taffy crayons being thrown out to the crowd at the Marine Corps parade. But I love the online rhetoric, right? Because, people got to lose their crap all the time over everything that Trump does. And I think Trump derangement syndrome and Trump devotion syndrome are flip sides of the same coin. I'm watching the left and the Never Trumpers burn everything down. It's like, oh, he's a dictator. And I'm sitting there going, how is the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army not something worth celebrating? If there's anything worth spending government funds on for a parade, this is it. I'm like, but you're willing to spend government funds on a pride parade at the White House, on putting friggin' 50-foot pride flags up on the White House lawn, and all sorts of random nonsense, but you can't honor the military? Now, granted, I'm going to say this. As far as military parades go, it wasn't even that good. Okay? If Trump were auditioning to be a dictator, throwing a military parade for his birthday, I think, the actual dictators in the world do it better. I'm just throwing out there. If Trump is trying to be a dictator, he's doing a bad job.
Yeah, he didn't make it all about himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was fun to watch. And it's like for a moment, we had the strikes against Iran. We had the riots all over the country. you saw all the news about the riots all over the country and all the news about the protests quiet down for just a moment as everybody online was patriotic for a couple of hours. All the normal people in the world, in the nation, were patriotic for just a few hours and were like, damn, America is back, baby. Like, who doesn't love to see this stuff? You know, especially when you see right over the Washington Monument, you see all the fireworks going up and stuff, and you're like, that's the America that we all love, right? That's the thing that we all unify behind. It's like we all have commonality in being Americans, and for a brief moment, we don't have to be left or right. We don't have to be red or blue. We don't have to be black or white or whatever. We can all just be Americans and like get around together. Oh, man. Do you have a clip of that parade? All right. So it was so beautiful to see. And I'm like, I got half chub right there, like looking at it. I'm like, oh, yes. I wanted to hop in the car and drive down to D.C. and just be a part of the party.
Yeah.
Like, it's... I don't think they have, like... To those who have missed that level of unity and that level of patriotism in the United States, undoubtedly, Donald Trump loves this country. Like, look at that.
Wow.
That is just absolutely beautiful.
Looks better than 4th of July fireworks. So the time I lived in Washington, D.C., they had some good 4th of July fireworks, but that looks even better.
That is just a beautiful scene right there. Like, who doesn't want that America? Like, and now Trump is going to have a hard time trying to top that for 4th of July coming up. Guy, that's going to be a hard thing to top. Oh, crap. And you know what? I just realized. So we're going to segue for a moment. Because you had the riots and you had the protests all throughout the week, or all throughout last week, and No Kings protests and everything. And we saw that there were over 30 locations here in the state, which, funny enough, these No Kings protests that were all supposed to be, you know, like, oh, America's unified against Donald Trump and this dictatorship and blah, 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 blah. If Donald Trump were auditioning to be a dictator or a king, you wouldn't be able to do a protest against him.
Exactly.
Disappear your ass. Like, if we were Russia or China, we would just disappear your ass. Just.
I always joke about the North Korea thing. It's like, remember, this was maybe 10, 15 years ago. I think it was like Eric Warmbier or something. He was a student who ripped a poster down or something, like disgraced a political, maybe a flag, or I don't know what it is. But they basically brought him back in a body bag. Okay? Mm-hmm. And they let him rot in a prison until he was basically dead. And then, here, we release him to us as he was a vegetable. Yeah. Right? It's like for ripping down a poster or disgracing the president. Like, they'll kill you. Other countries, you go to Iran or you go to Russia, right, and spit on a flag, burn a flag, do something like that, and see what happens to you, right? Go to China and do that, right? And here you could wave other countries' flags, burn them down, burn buildings down, attack police, and they're held back. You know, they're hands off. But yeah, go to China and do that. See what happens to you. Come on, it's crazy.
It is crazy, and you know what? It's only going to get worse. We had on Grant State Live, we had Carlin Borsenko on, and she was telling us that it is going to get worse. That the group that has actually been planning this, we're assuming that it's about ICE and that the left is unified and everything, and they're not. This group are radical socialists. They have been the Socialist Liberation Front, I think she said they were. And they had been planning this literally since the day that Trump won. So it's like, election over, all right, we're not going into chaos mode. She goes, no. The influencers online, they were chaotic. But the socialists, they were active. They just went into planning mode. They never take a break. They're always ready for the next fight. And they were planning these protests in advance. And then when the anti-ICE protest kicked off, they just used the fervor.
Jumped into that, yeah.
Yep. And what you expected to see was a lot more, minorities out there in the streets and stuff. I looked across the country. You know what I saw? I saw radical socialists waving socialist flags, and I saw a lot of liberal white
I
women.
was going to say crazy cat ladies.
Yep. Or what Keith calls them, awfuls. He calls them awfuls. What was the phrase that Keith used? Awfuls, liberal white white liberals, something like that. Aggravated white liberal women or some shit. And I'm like, God, that is so freaking accurate, because that's what I saw was like 50, 60, 70-year-old white liberal. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. These were the people during the 60s that were still protesting. They just haven't changed. They've just gone further to the left.
Yeah, they've spent 50 years living in affluence on, the educations they got, in the 60s and early 70s, and, working white-collar jobs and, cocooning themselves in their little sense that they're morally superior to everybody, and now they're collecting Social Security, and the country's in trouble again, and so now they're waving a sign and going to a protest, but they're not doing anything constructive, and they never will.
No.
I just find it's funny, during the Black Lives Matter, same thing. You have all these crazy old white ladies out there, and it's like, wait, what?
And that was the crazy part to me, is I'm like, I remember when the Black Lives Matter took off.
Yeah.
And that wasn't all unified under BLM either. It was, you had the socialists, you had Antifa, you had all these different groups that came out. And then when everything got violent at night, you notice, like, you can't tell me 50,000 people were burning down LA. They would have wiped out all of LA. Like, the destruction was bad. It was billions of dollars.
Yeah.
But it wasn't to the level of if that 50,000 people who were protesting in downtown LA were all out that night. If they had all been out that night, we would have been looking at way different America. And you're seeing that across the country, is that this same group of people, these old liberal white ladies, the Karens who are constantly complaining, which is funny enough. I'm like, the Karens who complain about black people and are the most likely to call the cops when they get uncomfortable are the same bitches who are out talking about police brutality. You're the people who call the cops and get people's ass whooped in the first damn place. I'm like, that's weird as shit. But we have coming up this week, Juneteenth. Oh my God, we are going to watch the internet melt down as people find something in Juneteenth to be aggravated about. So I was in the middle of writing an article about this, and I haven't published it yet. And it's basically the history of Juneteenth. Now, if you know anything about it, Juneteenth started in Galveston, Texas, started at the end of the Civil War, when the last town in the U.S., when Galveston, Texas, received word that the war was over and that we had won. Do we remember what the war was about? It was about ending slavery, right? It was the Republicans versus the Democrats. It wasn't just the North versus the South, because the Democrats in the North also supported slavery, in Illinois specifically. And the Republicans that were in the South supported the Union. So it was very much Democrats versus Republicans. It was the abolitionists versus the people who wanted to keep slaves. And when we saw that happen, you saw, and now you're seeing during Juneteenth, you're going to see us start to get to that point again, as this is actually a part of Republican history that we don't talk about. But the last 6 presidents have promoted the idea of turning Juneteenth into a holiday. As a matter of fact, it was part of Donald Trump's Platinum Plan. And every single influencer who in 2 days are going to be lambasting Juneteenth because Joe Biden actually did it, they were all on board when Trump talked about doing it. All were like, yeah, we're going to celebrate Republican history and stuff like that. So just wait, because it's going to be funny. All right, so we're going to take a quick break because I see our guest, Tyler Gray, is waiting on the line to come in. Stay tuned for the next segment. We're going to be talking about Iran versus Israel, the possibility of an Iran war, and Tyler's book, The Forged in Fire. All right, Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story. Stay tuned. United we stand, a Marines fight. written by Julian Acciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Acciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
All right, welcome to the final segment of Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast, where we have on our guest, Tyler Gray. In studio with me is Mike and Andy from Citizens Doge. Our guest is going to be Tyler Gray, star of SEAL Team. I actually watched that show. I watched the first 4 seasons, and I still have so many to catch up on. Tyler is also a Delta Force operator and the author of a book, Forged in Chaos, A Warrior's Origin Story. He is going to be with us today to talk about the looming possibility of a war with Iran, what's going on, the strikes that happened this weekend, and Trump's comments so far. How you doing, Tyler?
Great. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great. You are a Homeland Security specialist as well. Homeland Security anti-terrorism specialist as well.
Anti-terrorism more than Homeland Security, but
well, yes.
But yeah, it's it's all related. Especially, I've had experience in Iraq with the Iranians. They were funding the insurgency, and we came across quite a few in Iraq. So, this whole thing with Iran has been, it didn't happen, the last week. It's happened over the last several decades. It's been building, and now we're seeing the what happens from that lack of action earlier.
Yes. I deployed to Iraq as well in the Marines, and I study Homeland Security and anti-terrorism too. That was what I went to college for after the Marine Corps. And
awesome.
It is. I think there's this misnomer, Americans tend to think in terms of election cycles as if, once the next election cycle starts, the old one is null and void and we should just forget it. And we've been at war. We've been at quasi-war with Iran for literally decades, as you just said. They've been, the number one state sponsor is terror in the world, funding insurgents all over the place, from the Houthis in Yemen to insurgents in Iraq, Afghanistan, and this is just more of the same. One of the things that I've always said is foreign policy really devolves down to a measuring contest, where when you draw a line in the sand and you say, you do this or else, if you do this, this is what will happen. Once you cross that red line, if you don't follow up on whatever your threat was, whatever or else was, what is going to happen next is going to be far worse, and it's going to, basically lay the footing for the rest of this election cycle, rest of the presidency. What have you seen in this regard?
I mean, absolutely. And again, that's, that would be
audio.
You got me now? Hello? You got me? Hello? Hello? Says
Can
it's
you hear
working
me?
on my end. I can hear you.
All right, I got you back.
Oh, okay. All good. All good. Um, what's I saying? Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you got to treat this regime like children,
Yeah.
what you're saying applies to children. If you tell them something and you don't follow it up with an actual consequence, they won't take it seriously after that because it doesn't mean anything. And it's happened many, many times with with other administrations and everything. And so, it's at the point now where you have to follow up on those or else's, or they don't mean anything and they're not taken seriously. And the problem just keeps progressing, which is how we got to this point, in my opinion.
What do you see as the average, political influencer, pundit, commentator in politics is getting wrong about this looming possibility of war with Iran?
I think several things, but probably the biggest is that, there's some talk I saw recently, kind of a back and forth on, oh, they're not working on a bomb, et cetera, so on and so forth. And the reality is, I mean, look at what they've been doing again for decades with UN inspectors. And I mean, look, there's no question any reasonable person can look at their behavior and go, well, they're obviously hiding something in the nuclear realm. And what else would they be hiding other than a weapon? If they were just doing it for power production, everything would be completely different. So it's obvious that they're building a bomb. I don't think there's any dispute in that. Also, you being with the military background, you'll know this. Israel, their strikes in the last week have been based on freakishly good intel.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I mean, really, really good. In fact, I'll go as far to say there's obviously some new intel method that's being done that didn't exist 10 or 20 years ago. And so I have to assume the level of the intel that has led to the level of precision that the strikes that they're doing, that leads me to believe they have the same level of intel in regards to their nuclear program. So quite frankly, when they say, hey, we knew for a fact they were, close to building a bomb, I'm going to believe it, because I don't think they would have struck in the way they did had they not had the intel to base that off of.
So we have a couple comments from the White House over the course of the weekend, and obviously Trump has been posting on True Social, basically making it very clear. Look, we gave you the opportunity. We gave you the opportunity to come to the table. We gave you the opportunity to sit down and create a deal with us, and to go over rational discourse. But you forewent that opportunity, and I'm not playing games with you anymore. Now the only thing that you have my number. If you really want to talk, we can talk. But I'm not calling you. I'm not begging you. This isn't the old administration. This isn't Obama. This isn't Biden. We're not doing another Iran deal. No. Unconditional surrender is now the new terms, and they've made it bluntly clear that we know, just like Trump did with Afghanistan, leading to 0 troops during being killed during the last years of his presidency. He's made it very clear, we know where all of your people are, and we can strike all of you at once if we really want to. So, F around and find out.
Yeah, absolutely. And, everything, if you go back to what he said before the strikes, and again, I forget the quote, but before Israel struck with the first campaign, Trump said something which was a warning, basically negotiate or it's going to get bad. They didn't, and it got bad. When he said people should evacuate Tehran, he's saying that for a reason, obviously.
We actually have footage of them leaving Tehran right now. Go ahead and throw that up. That's something people need to see. The highways are completely packed with people fleeing Tehran because they know, it's going to get bad. And they're not, the U.S. isn't backing down. Israel isn't backing down. Highways leaving Tehran are absolutely packed, every single one of them.
Wow.
Yeah, as a side note, I just want to say this. When people talk about bugging out, this is the reality of bugging out.
Yeah.
It ain't going to happen. Sorry. It's a little more complicated than that. But On a serious note, when Trump also said, I think either today or yesterday, about we know exactly where, the supreme leader is, again, I have absolutely no doubt, based on the accuracy of the strikes. I mean, it's been freakishly accurate, the strikes. And so I have no doubt they know that. And I think that was put out there going, look, that we've been hitting your top people selectively with very little collateral damage. And if you don't, come to the table with this unconditional surrender, we'll hit and look, at the end of the day, do I think Iran is going to surrender? I mean, that's a tough one. I feel like if they were, they would have prior. I don't think this, the leaders of that country, again, not the people, but the leaders of that country respect anything but force. I think they feel that they're, much more protected and secure than they are. And I think they're going to get a very rude awakening if they haven't already.
And what's amazing to me is there's a movement within Iran. We have to remember that the mullahs have been involved in killing their own people, suppressing riots. Over the past 5 years, they've had multiple uprisings, and it is a powder keg. And we're looking at this. And my always contention is, one, show me proof that they have, before we get into another war, show me proof that they were about to do it, so that I know before my son have to go back over there, that we know without a doubt that we're fighting a war for the right reasons. Two, unleash the military. No more nation building, no more regime change. Our failure in Afghanistan was that we tried to do what for 1,000 years every other country tried to do, which was take Afghanistan. You don't take Afghanistan, you decimate it. You turn it into glass. And we need to fight wars to win wars from now on, which is, I'm sorry, you know what? Evacuate Tehran, because if they don't back down, turn the whole city into glass, decimate it all. I don't care about rebuilding it. I said it earlier. It's like slapping my wife on the ass and then expecting me, after beating you down, to pick you back up, pat you on the butt, and say good game. But
let's use a historical example that I think is relatively similar. You look at Japan in World War II, and you had the first atomic nuke, whatever you want to call it, dropped on a city. And remember, Japan did not surrender after the first nuke was dropped. It took a second one. And again, I think that what the Iranian regime is doing is similar, in the sense that it's going to take something absolutely, sadly, but ridiculously extreme to get them to understand what's going to happen if they don't surrender. So, again, it's sad. As like I know, the people is not the government, and the government is not the people. I hope that the Iranian people that are, not a part of this regime can hopefully rise up and maybe, change their own circumstances. But the other point I was going to say is, after we literally nuked 2 cities in Japan, they were responsible for rebuilding. We helped them in a lot of ways, but at the end of the day, it was the Japanese people's responsibility, just like it should have been the Afghanis' responsibility to rebuild Afghanistan, as well as, the Iraqis did obviously a much better job. We won the war, we won the insurgency, we left. And, you can't stay forever. And when you do, you just create more problems than you've solved initially, in my opinion.
Now, you have a book on the more inspiring side of things. You have a book that's out, Forged in Chaos, A Warrior's Origin Story, a leading advocate for veterans' mental health, specializing in PTSD, traumatic brain injury, and you have a new theory, lack of traumatic stress disorder. Can you explain that for us? And the premise of your book?
Yeah, so the premise of the book, Forged in Chaos, details my journey, from the, top of special operations to rock bottom and back. It explores, the loss of identity and purpose that many veterans face, and how I rebuilt myself from the inside out. My hope is that it helps other veterans find their way forward too. LTSD, everyone, VA, everyone was saying, you got PTSD, you got PTSD. I said, okay, what is it? They explained it to me, and it just didn't feel right. And think about PTSD this way. Is PTSD specific to veterans?
No.
Then how is it our specific problem?
It's really not. It just,
it's not, but
highlights.
I'm saying, yeah, when they say, veteran PTSD, it's way more complicated than that. The way I came up with LTSD is it's detailed in the book how it happened. But the short answer is post-traumatic stress disorder assumes a pre-traumatic stress baseline. Mm-hmm. I've never met you before. I'm going to bet that you had a chaotic childhood.
To some degree, yeah.
And if you had a chaotic childhood, you never had a pre-traumatic stress baseline. So you can't have traditional PTSD. So what happens is when you have a chaotic childhood, chaos, the child's brain has to adjust to the environment. And the way that it adjusts, it makes chaos in the environment become normal. It normalizes chaos, and chaos then becomes the homeostasis. So what that leads to later in life is you are calm in chaos. When the environment is chaos, your mind is calm. However, when the environment is calm, the chaos is in your head. How do you calm yourself? Simple. You create chaos back in the environment, and then you're calm again because that's your normal. So
God, that's
LTSD, again, and this is my point, man, every single veteran I have ever said this to, which is, hundreds now, every single person hears 30 seconds, they go, yeah, that's accurate to me.
Yeah.
That's how it feels. Yes.
That's exactly
right?
how it feels. Like
that's
I
exactly
came home,
how it feels.
I came home diagnosed with PTSD. I ended up a homeless veteran drinking a bottle a day, and my problem was not like when I was with my boys and I was with my guys in my unit and we were all together. Everything was good. Yeah, we had scars from overseas and stuff, but we were good. And then when you lose that and you lose that comfort zone, and I lost basically when you lose your backup, you're thrown into this world where I was constantly envisioning chaos and destruction and bad things happening, and around every corner I was expecting something bad to happen. I couldn't turn it off, and I was constantly like I couldn't be out in public, and I was constantly on edge everywhere I went, and I couldn't deal with normal people, and I was constantly angry and frustrated, and it literally was I couldn't turn my mind off. And now I've realized that it is exactly what you just explained, and I've always struggled with this idea that I think we're looking at the problem wrong. We're assuming that your mind is at war, even though your body's no longer in war.
100%. And I would go one step to say this about what you just said is, you were expecting, but I would say if you really dug deep in your mind, you were probably hoping for that chaos.
I
you were
honestly
hoping.
was.
Exactly. You were hoping for something crazy to happen because then you wouldn't have the chaos in your head. It would be in the environment and you would be calm. So how do we calm ourselves? We create chaos. They call it PTSD. The problem when you call us creating chaos PTSD is what's the why? We don't understand why we're doing it. When I explain LTSD and I go, you're creating chaos in the environment because your baseline, your normal is a chaotic environment, and that's what calms you. So you're creating chaos because you're just trying to essentially relax yourself. And what happens is once you understand the why, the next time you go to create chaos, you'll go, oh shit, I know what I'm doing. And then it gives you some level of agency of choice because you understand the mental process that is making you take those actions. And obviously I detail it in the book, but there's a couple other components that I want to mention real quick. Loss of identity. A big mistake that a lot of people made, and I made for many years, was, I lost my identity when I got out of the military. And then I finally realized that wasn't true. I didn't lose my identity when I got out of the military. The reality is I never had my own to begin with. And the way I can prove, well, think of it this way. The way I can prove that is if the job became your identity, then you never had a strong enough identity to begin with.
Yeah.
And so when we lose our identity, we then go, oh man, I lost my identity and then I got to find it again. But the reality is you never had it. The thing that comes, and this I'm going to throw out there and I'm going to see your thoughts on it. But what I think is the core disease, for lack of a better term. Does PTSD exist? Absolutely. But I consider that a symptom, not the disease. And think of what you just said earlier about this with PTSD and veterans is awareness and treatment for PTSD are at an all-time high. Is the problem getting better or worse?
Worse. It's getting decisively worse.
And logically, if treatment and awareness was at an all-time high, things should get better. The only possible way it could get worse is if what we're saying is the disease isn't really the disease. The main disease that I claim in the book is fortune and chaos. So you have a chaotic childhood, and a chaotic childhood leads to this. Children are egocentric. They think they're responsible for the environment, right? Mm-hmm. So a child growing up in chaos goes, I know this isn't good. The only reason that my environment is bad, it must be because I'm bad. The core disease in the veteran community, I believe, is low self-worth.
Wow. Yeah, I mean that would definitely mesh up with the suicide rates and the drug addiction rates and the alcohol rates, because that at the ultimately I don't see guys committing suicide because of the demons in their head from what they experience overseas. I see guys committing suicide after losing the pillars of who they think they are. Like every guy that I know that has committed suicide has been after a divorce, after a loss of job, after a loss of their brotherhood. It has not been just because of what they experience overseas. It's always these other pillars of who we think we are that we lose. And I've struggled with that myself. I constantly have to reevaluate and look in the mirror and be like, no. You're doing this to yourself. You need to calm down. The world is not in chaos.
So in the book I described, you have a chaotic childhood, and that creates two people, I believe. The warrior and the destroyer. Mm-hmm. The warrior is good, and it's the true innate you. It's the real you. The destroyer is created to get you through the hard stuff because it's a hard environment. You create this ulterior character that is tougher, stronger, doesn't care, is non-feeling, and that character's kind of not the best person because it learned to manipulate to get its needs met and all these different things. So when people talk about the war within, they go, oh, the war within. What does it mean? I wanted to, I have I work in Hollywood now. So I'm like, I want to give it characters. I need to give the war within two characters that we can understand. And the conflict of the war within is between the destroyer and the you. The warrior, is the innate real you. The destroyer is the you. It's not really you. It was what trauma forced you to create. So the conflict is, I don't know if I'm a good person or a piece of shit. I don't know if I deserve good things or if I don't deserve anything good ever.
God.
And the reality is both things are true at the same time in your own head. They're both true because you have evidence of both. You can go, well, I did all these good things. I have these thoughts, but I also have done these things and I have these thoughts. And so you don't know which one is the real you. And that leads to a massive, massive internal battle that I think is raging within a lot of us. And it once I understood why it was happening, then it made me go, oh my God, I'm not the destroyer. I've always been the warrior. The destroyer was just something that I had to create to survive, but it's not who I am. which helped me actually claim and forge an actual identity. But all those different things are happening all at the same time. And, the problem is there's so much happening at one time, and people don't have the ability to sort out all the different problems. It just feels like, everything's wrong, and they don't know, they're underwater and they don't know which way is up. So what I do in the book is I lay out my entire story. And then at the end of the book, for, a quarter of it, I lay out what I did to get better, the realizations I came to, and there's a whole AAR. So it's not just an autobiography. It also explains the processes I used and the realizations I used to get me back, and really, to get to the real me, I would say.
Damn. So that reminds me of that parable. Each man has inside of him a white wolf and a dark wolf, and the one that wins is the one that you feed.
Yep.
I'm definitely going to have to get a copy of your book. I'm going to send it to you so I can get it signed, brother. Because
no. Just when we get off, send me your address and I'll mail you a copy. I have some that I got, so I'll send you one.
All right, because that is fantastic. I think this is definitely a book that I think the average veteran needs to read. My unit has a Facebook group, and I'm gonna recommend your book for everyone to take a look at, because I know there's definitely a lot of guys that could use it, especially veterans, and I think not even just veterans. I think the average man in general needs to read a book that teaches them how to deal with the men that we have to become to survive versus the men that we really truly are inside. We it's Men's Mental Health Month, and I just had on Strong Dad to discuss the stability and the nature of being a good man and fatherhood. I think your book is definitely a toolkit that the average man needs to have in their back pocket. Beans, bacon, bullets. This is what we need. These are the bullets.
Yeah, it's you jump to it. You're correct. It's originally I was writing it for veterans. Obviously, that's my background. And then once I had it laid out, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly the same for first responders. Once I had that in there, I realized that it's actually the same template, the same forging, the same mold for any and everyone, regardless of any job they did. It's the same pattern for any and everyone who had a chaotic childhood. It's the same pattern. And therefore, what's amazing about it is when we all have that childhood, there's so many similarities between our stories. And the one thing that I want to turn off in the veteran community is comparison. People go, oh, I didn't serve in combat, or I wasn't a combat MOS. And I go, well, did you serve in the military? They go, yeah. And they're like, I'm like, you're a veteran? They go, yeah. And I go, great, me too. We're exactly the same in that. Mm-hmm. Any other conversation and specifics are only going to separate and highlight our differences. And the reality is we have way more similarities than we have differences. And I think we need to basically call attention to our similarities between each other.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, from what I've seen from suicide rates, a lot of the guys committing suicides are not guys that deployed overseas. It's actually guys that didn't deploy, and it's a lot of guys that didn't see combat.
And you said it earlier, and you said it so well, but I do want to double tap on it, is there's no way that you could kill yourself and value yourself at the same time. It's not possible. It doesn't make sense. It's illogical. The other thing I'm going to say about that, and see your point with the people you've known, but when you are a child in a chaotic environment, you have no, as I already said, internal value. You have no internal value. So the way you get value, or you think all value is external. So the way you get value is by collecting what I call trophies, money, fame. He's a good dude, a beautiful girlfriend, a beautiful wife, beautiful kids. And when they lose their trophies, they lose their value, as you already said. The other part that the childhood creates is what I call hero syndrome. I used to have dreams as a kid of dying, saving people. That's ridiculous. but I had them, right? And so what I realized is, again, I felt that I had no value, and the way I felt that I could get it was by saving someone or doing something like that. And with suicide, I feel a lot of times, yes, it's a lack of self-worth, but I also see a lot of people that commit suicide, in my opinion, also strangely see it as a heroic act because they're just taking themselves out so people don't have to deal with them.
God,
You know,
that
they have no
that
they
is
have
so
no value
accurate.
in their mind. Yeah, they have no value in their mind, and they're like, as my last heroic act, I will sacrifice myself so that you don't have to deal with me anymore or worry about me. And the crazy part is the military, the VA is looking at this and going, oh my God, that's so wild. It's not wild at all. In basic training, they would literally throw dummy grenades and give kudos to the guy that jumped on it. Now a guy commits suicide thinking he's, saving everyone around him from himself, and you think that's shocking? No. That's not shocking at all. That's
No.
how we were built.
I
And
mean-
they need to take responsibility for that.
Think about the society we grew up in. I mean, I grew up, I don't think my dad even realized it at the time. I grew up watching, Spartacus with Kirk Douglas and,
Yep.
then 300 and all the movies
Yep.
and all the stories and parables and poems
Yep.
that I read were of men who sacrificed everything,
Yep.
even though it didn't lead to a victory. They were willing to sacrifice everything, the dying of a valiant death, right?
Yep.
And that was the pinnacle of what it meant to be a good man or to be an honorable man, was to sacrifice yourself. And we on the podcast last week, I had said to my guest, our mothers hold a specific and special place in our lives as men, because as men, they're the only people who give us unconditional love in our lives, unconditional validation and affirmation of who we are at our core as human beings, whereas everybody else in our life gives us affirmation or validation solely on what we provide or what we do, what we can accomplish. So alluding to the trophies you were just talking about, I went through my life thinking that, all right, in order to have any intrinsic value to society or value as a human being, I have to do this. As a matter of fact, my family's motto is, if I were to die today knowing that I have benefited another person's life for the better, then I have lived a good life. And while that seems like an honorable thing to do as a way to live your life, as a foundational building block of your life, selfless service, at a core, it's also a lack of value in yourself if your only intrinsic value is to sacrifice for other people.
100%. And think about it this way. I was just on a show earlier talking about this. If you fundamentally, the chaotic childhood leads, when you have a lack of value on yourself, a lack of worth, that leads to a high level of self-destructive behavior, not just creating chaos, but also, sacrificial behavior. But think of it this way. Any combat job is not normal. That's, running towards gunfire is not normal. So it's insane. Like, you can't do that job and not be at some level self-destructive, because the job by nature requires and not just requires, but rewards self-destructive behavior. And so what's crazy to me again about the military is, they value the self-destructive behavior when you're doing the job, and then when you get out, they go, oh, the guy killed himself? Oh, that's crazy. How did that happen? And again, it's like, well, we were fundamentally self-destructive. You trained us to be more self-destructive, and now you're surprised that the guy was self-destructive?
So
Doesn't make any sense.
I want everybody to go out, buy Forged in Chaos. Look up Tyler Gray. It's at Tyler Aries Gray on X and Tyler Gray on Instagram. I follow you, and I hope everybody else
Tyler
does too.
A. Gray. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tyler A. Gray on Instagram.
All right, Tyler A. Gray on Instagram. Everybody go follow, buy a copy of the book. I'm definitely going to get a copy. It is definitely something everyone needs to read. Give me a quick 60 seconds as we wrap up on, I know, where everyone can find you and what you see that the military could do better, as far as, yes, we need that self-destructive sacrifice to be, effective in combat, but at the same time, how to build up men who, after the military, and men in general, who after that, having to become the wolf to survive, can become a man again to thrive.
I mean, it's a great question. I think there's a lot of different ways. The first way is, the ACAP, or depending on TAPS, depending on your service. I think when, guys get into the window of getting out, there needs to be for lack of a better term, but like undoing certain self-destructive brainwashing where, guys get prepared to change that mentality. And it's like, when we were in, it's contribute to the team, never take away, never ask for help from the team. And then the day you get out, you realize that, there's a reason we're all trying to do it alone. It's because that's the way we've been, created and trained to do. So I think there needs to be a process that unwinds that and says, hey, now that you're not a part of this team, now you guys are a team and you can ask for help and should ask for help with each other. I think the other part is the military needs to kind of detach from the traditional mental health model and understand that there are there's way more data now. PTSD, LTSD, whatever you want to call it, is a physical issue and it's a nervous system issue, and you cannot treat that solely by talk therapy. The reason talk therapy doesn't work is because the brain is within the body, and it takes a combined approach to heal the nervous system, as well as deal with the other aspects of identity loss, purpose loss, as well as loss of the brotherhood, as we all know. So I think they need to start doing programs that incorporate all these things. But the biggest single thing, in my opinion, is we need to get together when we're out. We all isolate to a certain degree. I did it. I'm sure you've done it. And we need to get over that, and we need to start getting back like World War II veterans did, VFWs and all those things. But no one is going to fix us but us. It's our responsibility, and we can do it if we bound together and do it as a team.
All right. Thank you for coming on. I got to say, my favorite guest so far to have on a podcast, because
thank you so much.
It hits home, and I can't wait to read your book, and I look forward to possibly having you back on in the future, so we can go deeper into it and dig really, really deep into the theories, because I think this is something that is definitely going to be beneficial for not just, veterans, but first responders and men in society as a whole. Thank you for coming on. Thank you, Mike and Andy, for being here for this. Everybody, this is the end of the episode for Blue Collar Intellectual. Thank you for tuning in. You can find us on Right America Media on X, Instagram, TikTok, and ramtv.com. Go ahead, tune in, watch the episode, share it with your friends. Make sure to buy the book. Buy my book as well, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. And we'll see you next week. God bless everyone. United We Stand, Marines Fight, written by Julian Acciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Acciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.